We'll just take a minute or two and wait for our vice chair. All right, looks like we have our quorum. Then we're ready to go. Good evening, everyone. I'll start off by reading the meeting notice. The Public Safety Committee of the New Haven Board of Alders will hold a workshop on the following matter on Thursday, February 18th at 6 p.m. via video conference. Please click this URL to join: https://bit.ly/20pnqnw, or to join audio only, dial 929-205-6099 or 301-715-8592 and enter webinar ID 998-6772-6109. And for audio only, passcode 4718227099. It's the meeting on crime trends, and solutions in New Haven. For accessibility-related requests, please contact 203-946-7833 voice or 203-946-8582 TTY prior to the meeting. Per order, Honorable Gerald M. Antunes, Chair. Attest Michael B. Smart, City Clerk. Thank you, everyone, again for coming this evening. This is the workshop on crime trends, and solutions in New Haven. I'd like to start off by having my committee members introduce themselves, starting with my vice chair.
Alderman Brian Wingate, Ward 29, Beaver Hills.
Alder Jose Crespo, Ward 16, Fairhaven.
Abby Roth, Ward 7, downtown East Rock, a little bit of Worcester Square.
Alder Singh, Ward 5, Hill South.
We don't hear you, Alder Smith.
Sorry, Alder Honda Smith, Ward 30.
Thank you, everyone. All right, we'll cover just to do a little ground rules in preparation first. This is a workshop, and it will be somewhat of a roundtable discussion where we'll take testimony from invited speakers from various law enforcement and criminal justice agencies, including our police department, Yale Police, FBI, ATF, State's Attorney's Office, and State Parole and Probation. And we're still waiting for a couple of those to arrive. Our objective is to bring together some of the people and agencies that we feel have the power and authority necessary and who can work together to address and end the increased number of violent crimes that have been happening in this city. We also have a couple of additional invited guests from New Haven Police Commission, Commissioner Anthony Dawson and Commissioner Evelise Ribeiro. State Representative Alphonse Paolello, who serves as the co-chair of the State Public Safety Committee. He may be here a little bit later. He had another meeting tonight along with the State Police Commissioner. Mr. Stacy Spell of Project Longevity, Reverend Bozie Kimber, representing the ministries in the city, and President Dory Dumas of the New Haven chapter of NAACP. We hope everyone will be able to get here to contribute. We know that this type of meeting can be lengthy, and we don't expect to come up with all the answers tonight. So I will ask each person to limit themselves initially to 5 minutes so that we can get everybody's initial input. I'll start by asking the participants to discuss the increase as far as your perspectives go and your thoughts and plans regarding how best to work together and with the help of the communities throughout the city to eliminate this violence. Then I'll go on to ask for input from our other invited guests. And lastly, we will have questions from my colleagues on this committee. I will ask all of our invited guests to state their name and address prior to starting their testimony. I'd also like to acknowledge some of my other colleagues, Alder Carmen Rodriguez, our President Alder Walker Myers, Alder Rose Santana, Alder Anna Festa, our Majority Leader, Alder Richard Furlow, Alder Adam Marchand, Alder Delphine Clyburn. And I think that's all, unless there's somebody on the next page. Mr. Vice Chair, did I miss anybody? No.
No, I do not see you miss anybody.
Okay, let's get started then. We have representative from New Haven Police, Yale Police. How many are here, Mickey?
There are quite a few. I'm starting to let them in now. It'll take a minute or two to let them all in.
Okay, in the meantime, we also noticed Alder Jeannette Morrison, who just arrived as well. See, I saw it's just Assistant Chief Dominguez. I thought I saw her somewhere.
She was here before. I'm not sure if she still is.
How about, it's unfortunate we can't see everybody on the screen. How about Assistant Chief Jacobson?
I'm here.
Are you? All right. Maybe we can get started with you and hopefully your colleague
Chief
will.
Dominguez is in.
Pardon me?
Chief Dominguez is here if you wanted to start with her, sir.
Yeah, she was here a minute ago. Well, we just got to find her.
Mhm.
Unless she lost the signal.
No, I'm here. I just wasn't in yet.
Oh, okay. All right, Chief. Well, we'll open it first to both chiefs, Dominguez and Jacobson. Let's start the conversation with murders, robberies, assaults with firearms. even shots fired, confirmed shots fired. All these numbers are up this year. Can you tell us what the police are doing, maybe investigatively, what you can divulge, and what you're doing regarding any prevention for future incidents?
Okay, absolutely. So definitely compared to years in the past and even going back, we're looking at trends from 2011. Our shootings, our non-fatal shootings are at 13. Our murders are at 7, and our shots fired are also up considerably. Many factors have really played a role in the violence that we're seeing, and it is not just in New Haven, and it's not just in Connecticut, it's nationwide. However, what's important to us in our community is obviously what's happening here and what we can do about it. Many things in 2020 played a role. COVID played a role in our violence, and not having schools in session played a role in our violence, and also not being able to do the things that we know worked in the past. So with all of that said, many of the things that we're finally been able to start as 2021 has started is really going to be what is able to get this crime under control, like we've been able to see in the past. The major thing that we just were able to do is the Project Longevity call-in. So that was huge. We normally do maybe 4 a year, if not more. And Stacy and also Assistant Chief Jacobson can talk on that. We finally were able to fit into COVID guidelines and to be able to be safe and to have a very successful call-in last month. So we're hoping to be able to continue things that we were doing in the past that we weren't able to do due to the pandemic and some of the restrictions. Some other things that we do on the investigative side, we're also using probation and parole, being able to be more having one-on-one connections with individuals that were on probation, on parole, just were released, and we weren't able to have these face-to-face interactions. And that really hurt our ability to connect with people and provide services for some of the people that were just released that we know have a potential to offend again or were involved in violent crimes. One of the other fantastic things that's going to be starting is with Project More. We're going to be doing some meet and greets, which we haven't been able to do for a whole year at Project More with individuals who are being released into the community. And it's going to expand our ability to reach and provide services for individuals beyond just gang and group related people involved in gang and group related violence, people who are not on probation and parole, because everyone released is going to be going to Project More. So we're going to be able to have this support system, including the police, to be able to connect with individuals that have a potential to reoffend and to work together to collaborate to reduce violence by meeting and interacting and providing services for these individuals. On the patrol.
Chief, can I interrupt you for a second? You may not have heard the announcement at the beginning, but each of our speaking guests will be asked to give their name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Renee Dominguez, Assistant Chief, 1 Union Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut.
Thank you.
On the patrol level, things that we weren't able to do were 2-person cars, to be able to do some preventative patrols, because we were trying to limit our officers having to have face-to-face contact due to COVID. We have new measures. We're extra safe. We're seeing that the positivity rate is decreasing with our officers, and our quarantine rates are decreasing. And we're able to restart some of these things again that we know have worked in the past. We had to stop bicycle beats and even walking beats because people were coming right up to our officers, and we were concerned for the community if our officers happened to be COVID positive and not know it yet. And also for them to be able to not be able to maintain 6 feet of distance, where in a car, they're a little bit able to control the interactions and how close they're getting, and asking someone to put a mask on before they're interacting. So many things we've seen in the past 4 weeks, our motor vehicle enforcement has begun to rise up again. We're seeing that officers are doing preventive police work again. Our number of arrests for guns we've seized 21 guns with, or 20 guns with 21 arrests in 6 weeks of the year or 7 weeks in the year. And that's double what we seized in 2020 at this same time. So we're really doing some of the things that we weren't able to do in the past. And we think that this is going to help decrease the violence and help to get a handle on what is going on. And I know that you wanted to limit me to 5 minutes. So if you want, I can stop there and I can turn it over to Assistant Chief Jacobson.
Yes, that would be good. Thank you.
Thank you. First, Alder Antunes and the Public Safety Commission, thank you for having this meeting. I think it's important to point out, first of all, we can't do it alone, and we know that, and we need help. And a lot of our partners are sitting right here with us. And as I go along and kind of tell you what we do, I'm going to point out those partners because I appreciate them very much. And we'd be in a lot more dire straits without those partners. But I'm going to start with every morning, 4 days a week, except for the ComStat Thursdays, we have a morning intel meeting. All law enforcement partners are on it. You'll see Probation, Eileen Morano, who's on this call, herself, Parole, Mr. Griffin's people from the state's attorney's office, the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, the ATF. You'll see Scott Reardon on here from the ATF. Thank you for being here, Scott. And the DEA, pretty much every division of the New Haven Police Department is represented. And we talk about what happened the night before, crime-wise. And why we do that is we want to get a handle on the crime because our numbers are driven by retaliation for the most part. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit quickly that this, over the past year with the pandemic, it's not much about retaliation as it is about a lot of different things going on at the same time. Large amounts of people being out that weren't out before, large beefs that weren't settled before are restarting. So instead of having one beef that leads to 2 or 3 shootings, we have numerous beefs leading to multiple shootings. And the way we get a handle on that is we talk about it every day. And all those partners are involved in those discussions. And we don't just say, who are we going to arrest today? We say, who can we talk to and who can we arrest? Because some of the people involved may have warrants and we go do what we can right away. And then other people involved, we just talk to. We simply talk to through the Project Longevity model. And we use custom notifications and we have that face-to-face contact. And like Chief Dominguez said, we weren't able to do that because of COVID, but we started doing it again. And to make sure we're doing it and doing it more than ever, we made a commitment as a police department to do 20 of these custom notifications a week. Whether people are involved in stuff or not, we're meeting 20 prior gun violent offenders a week at wherever we can get them to, or even at their homes. And we come in and we say to them, we want you safe, alive, and out of jail. You're at risk to be shot or shoot somebody. And then we talk to them. And I'll tell you, we get a lot of information this way. Even if they're not home, their family members talk to us. And these are the things we weren't able to do for an entire year. Think about that, for an entire year. And these are the things that brought this city from 134 non-fatal shootings, averaging from 2003 to 2011, 134 non-fatal shootings. To 2012 to 2018, we averaged 63 non-fatal shootings. So this worked before, and I say to you, I think it'll work again as long as we get our partners involved. And then I will say, Mr. Griffin's crew, we had 7 arrests in 2021 for non-fatal shootings. 7 warrants were signed. I think we picked up 5 of the 7 people so far. We also had a murder arrest in 2021. We have several murder warrants that we're going to get down to him that we're talking with his people about. He has kept his people. His people were in my building all day, every day right now. And since we've been able to open up the building from COVID, that's what's been going on. And we appreciate that. That's a huge key to this because the detectives, and I will say our detectives are young. Our detectives need that guidance from his people. And I really appreciate that. And then on the flip side, once a week, if not more, besides those intel meetings, Mr. Griffin's people, the U.S. Attorney's Office, our federal partners, we meet on Tuesdays and we talk about what cases can be adopted federally, what larger cases we can do. The FBI just did a large wiretap in the Hill area due to all the violence in the Hill in the summer. Now, let me tell you what's a little different. They rounded up 5 of the main players in that, where that might have been a 20-person roundup. Due to COVID and the restrictions in court, they only did 5. We are going to indict some more people and do some more, but we're limited by the COVID situation. But I would say these are the type of cases, remember Bloodline years ago, the Grape Street Crips case years ago. Those are cases that kind of stabilize the city. And we're looking to do more of those cases, and that's why our partners are here. The other thing I just wanted to mention is the tip line. What people in the city can do for us is push out that we need information as a police department. We need information. We cannot solve these crimes alone. We have a tip line. We have tip cards. We haven't been good about pushing that out. And I think we need a media blitz on when we do make an arrest for a homicide and a shooting, which probably people weren't aware that we are because of the COVID situation. We need to put that out on social media more. We need to put the tip line out on social media more. And I would even say that we start giving out the tip line cards at CMTs and other locations. We're also having our detectives give out the tip line cards at scenes. So they pass out these cards as they go around and canvas. Yes, sir. So we are, we're trying to get the word out more that we need the help.
That looks like your 5 minutes, Chief, for
Oh,
now.
okay, I apologize.
And don't be offended because we will be coming around again, time providing. But that was, it was really good, informative. I'd like to move on to Yale PD. I understand Assistant Chief Campbell, Assistant Chief Wozniak are here and maybe can help contribute something here. And please state your name and address before you testify.
Alder,
Assistant
the
Chief.
the chief is here as well.
Yes, I know the chief was sitting in, but he did not want to speak at this point. He wanted his assistant to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
Understood. I'll start. Assistant Chief Anthony Campbell with the LPD. My address is 101 Ashman Street. So as Chief Jacobson stated, I think one of the things that is going to be most helpful is the collaborative partnership that we have. We have worked together on a constant basis throughout the years, and we are working closely together now more than ever. Having 20 homicides in the city, the increase of shootings, Yale University being in the heart of New Haven is not exempt from these type of events. And I could tell you that there is an extremely high, elevated sense of anxiety that people are having right here on the campus and in the surrounding neighborhoods where many of the faculty, staff, and students reside. We've been partnering with the New Haven Police Department on a number of things. And most recently, I think one of the things that we're trying to do is address the anxiety and the trauma that everyone is experiencing as a result of these increased homicides. As recently as this week, our detectives and sergeants partnered up with the New Haven Police Department, particularly Lieutenant Monique Colon, and went out to Lawrence Street and canvassed that entire street, knocking on doors to address those who had been traumatized most recently by shootings in the area, particularly with the death of Kevin Jiang. And this is following the model that has existed at the New Haven Police Department for the last 30 years in its partnership with the Yale Child Study Center, which typically addresses trauma that children experience. Now we're simply extending that out to the adults who witnessed this, heard this, and are affected by it. And many people are taking advantage of it. Dr. Paul Hoffman from the Yale Health Department, Yale Mental Health, who oversees that, went with them with a couple of his clinicians, and it was well received. And that was because of the partnership that we have with the New Haven Police Department. And I believe that it is these types of efforts and the things that both Chief Dominguez and Chief Jacobson were talking about, which will help. And we will always contribute to efforts like Project Longevity, which, if you ask me, is one of the greatest tools that this city has to combat increases in violence. With that, I'll turn it over to the other Assistant Chief, Steve Wozniak.
Hey, thank you, Chief. Stephen Wozniak, Assistant Chief, EOPD, Ashman Street. So we've heard some very interesting insight in terms of how we could really address these crime trends. And we know that it really takes a multi-pronged approach. So just to kind of elaborate further on what Chief Jacobson shared, I mean, from an investigative perspective, it's vitally important. And Yale PD is certainly an engaged partner in that respect, particularly in terms of being involved with the intel meetings and just our detectives working alongside each other on just matters of mutual concern. One of the things that we're very pleased that we're going to be able to take advantage of again is we have participated in the shooting task force in the past, and we are committed to do so in the very near future. And we think that that's going to really contribute significantly to just, being an engaged partner in terms of trying to really attack, some of this violence from an investigative perspective, because we all know that, in terms of field operations, visibility is vital in and around our neighborhoods and our shared community, because it gives folks a sense of, hey, reduce the anxiety. It makes people feel safe seeing the police, out and about. But also from an investigative perspective, we need to focus on those that are actually committing these crimes and be really intricately involved in preventing the next shooting. And I think that's what's vitally important. And, I could say that New Haven PD historically has a very good track record, even during my time there back many, many years ago, of actually, being able to put a comprehensive approach together to actually, have some successes along the way. And as you heard many, of those in senior leadership over the last few weeks and even months, it's a tough time right now. But collectively together with all of our efforts, I think that we could make some significant strides and certainly get back to where we were, a little bit ago. So that's pretty much it. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, both assistant chiefs. Good input. Also, one of the partners that all the police talk about, and since we are discussing guns, we have our representative. Is it Mr. Reardon from ATF? Would like to speak and give us name and address, please?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good evening. Scott Reardon. I'm the resident agent in charge of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, commonly referred to as ATF, here in New Haven, the New Haven field office, located in the Giamo Federal Building at 150 Court Street. Thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. This is exactly what makes New Haven special. I've had the privilege to work in many locations around the country with many state, local, federal law enforcement partners. I'm here to tell you that the cooperation in the city of New Haven and the surrounding counties and territories is second to none. I've never been a part of a law enforcement community like this, spearheaded by the New Haven PD, Mr. Griffin, his office. Forget the daily intel meetings, the every Tuesday, and then we do a Project Safe Neighborhoods meeting every other Tuesday. So the collaboration is incredible. COVID definitely has been throwing us off our game a little bit. I am responsible for the 4 southern counties in New Haven, in Connecticut, to include Bridgeport and Waterbury and New London. So we're spread thin, but most of my resources are in New Haven. We have several task force officers working daily. Our little niche is combating violent crime. So we have some good cases in the pipeline, and we will continue to focus on firearms related crimes. And we will not get back down. I have no doubt. You have the full commitment of ATF, and I speak for the U.S. Attorney's Office as well. Everyone is committed to making this city a lot more safe in the future.
Thank you, Mr. Reardon. Just for a second here, I also want to recognize some other alders that appeared this evening. Is Alder Sabin from Ward 1, Alder Edwards, Alder Marchand, and Alder Hurt. Thank you all for coming in, and hopefully we'll all get to learn some new things. So far, there's been a lot of conversation about patting each other on the back, and we understand that it's really important. Relationships are important, contacts are important, but we need to get down to the solid baseline and what your agency is doing. For instance, ATF, what are you doing? And what are your plans to help to alleviate the problem? So that's what we're looking for. Do we have our representative from FBI here? Mick, do you know if he came in?
I don't.
Sorry,
see-
what is his name again?
Oh, I have to look at it. He was the deputy supervisory agent.
I don't see him.
I didn't either. All right, then we'll move on to State's Attorney's Office. Mr. Attorney Griffin. Please, your name and address.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good evening. Patrick Griffin, State's Attorney, Judicial District of New Haven. Address is 235 Church Street here in New Haven. I agree with you, Alderman. As we've talked tonight, there's no question that New Haven has strong relationships among the various law enforcement agencies, strong leadership at those agencies. The real question is, what strategies are we seeking to employ? If we look at 2020, it was an extremely concerning year just by statistics. 144 guns seized in New Haven alone, 142 gun arrests. Most concerning to me as a state's attorney, in addition to our fatals, I think we need to focus on our non-fatals. In year 2020, the city of New Haven had 121 non-fatal gun-related assaults. That number is, in my opinion, the number that we must focus on, because unfortunately those numbers tend to create additional acts of violence and acts of retribution. So an individual who is harmed, or a family member or a friend or an associate who is harmed in one of those 121 incidents is likely to pop up in year 2021. I'll address directly what the New Haven State's Attorney's Office has and continues to do to attempt to alleviate the gun violence in New Haven. Number one, we're fully committed to Project Longevity and to Project Safe Neighborhood. I have a vertical prosecution team here in New Haven, which means that every felony gun arrest and gun prosecution is handled, as we like to say, from cradle to grave by one prosecutor, and that ensures continuity. We review each and every felony gun arrest in New Haven with our federal partners once a week. The question is, why do we do that? The simple answer is, it is a determination as to where that case should be properly prosecuted. It may surprise some people on this meeting to learn that I have 6 individuals in my office, including myself, who are cross-designated federally as Special Assistant United States Attorneys. And that gives us the flexibility to follow our cases into federal court as necessary. Additionally, we meet every Tuesday with our federal partners, our FBI, ATF, DEA, United States Attorney's Office, to discuss long-term strategies, pending grand jury investigations, both at the state and federal level, of which, of course, you recognize that I'm not privileged to discuss. But we are meeting regularly. Over the course of the last 8 months, my office has personally presented 20 plus times to New Haven Police Department in training sessions on everything from police accountability to search and seizure. We make it our business to assist in every shooting incident in New Haven as needed. What does that mean? I have a number of inspectors that are formerly New Haven police officers of high rank. We send these individuals to crime scenes along with myself and other members of my staff to attempt to assist from the beginning of an investigation. And so I think as we look forward to 2021, I'm going to tell you, I'm concerned that the trends that we saw in 2020 are likely to continue. There are many factors that have gone into the rise in violence, not least of which is COVID, but not only COVID. And I do think that a proactive strategic approach to gun violence which means going after individuals before they pull the trigger, before they have an opportunity to shoot somebody, is to me, the key to driving down these statistics. And I'd be happy to take questions at the appropriate time and discuss that further.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Griffin. I always almost make the mistake of calling you by another former prosecutor's name. I'm sure you've gotten that a few times too. Thank you. Let's move to probation. Do we get our probation and parole people here? Mickey, did anybody?
Hi, my name is Eileen Moreno. I'm an adult probation officer at 867 State Street. I supervise the gang and gun unit along with two other gentlemen, John Watts and Craig Capone, who supervise offenders the ages of 18 to 24 with gun arrest. Since the start of COVID, probation has been seeing and staying in contact with every client. We've arranged it so there are scattered days where we work remotely or we work in the office. We are seeing clients. We're taking safety precautions because of COVID, but they are being seen, especially high-risk clients. How probation works is once they're released from a DOC or the court orders them to probation, we sit and we do an intake on the individuals and assess their needs. We assist them if they need substance abuse treatment, mental health treatment. We help assist them getting benefits with DSS. I meet with the Intel unit every morning, and I also work closely with the police department in helping to identify at-risk youth or offenders, and arrange with Chief Jacobson to have a meeting with the offenders to offer them additional services through Project Longevity. There's gift cards to be given to some of the individuals. There are housing needs. There are a lot of different needs that we address to make sure that these individuals do not reoffend. But I wanted to assure the city of New Haven that we are actively supervising our clients. Specifically in the high-risk population, we do utilize GPS monitoring and frequent reporting schedules. A lot of our offenders in this unit meet 3 times a month with the probation officers. And as they do well, we gradually bring them down twice a month and then once a month. But working with Project Longevity and Project Safe, we have been able to provide a lot of our offenders with assistance with identified needs and making sure that they do not reoffend.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I hope everyone excuse my head down, but I'm trying to take a lot of notes. So we have some information. Force of habit. How about parole? Have a representative. Can't see the whole screen here. So a representative from parole in the house here?
I believe he said that he would not be able to make it.
Okay.
And Alder Antunes, the FBI was trying to get in. It's Ari Papalopoulos. He was trying to get in. I don't know if he ended up getting in.
Oh, okay. That wasn't it wasn't the name I had, but maybe that's why. Is he in?
I don't see him, but I have a half a dozen people who are phone numbers only, and I can't tell their names.
Yeah.
I don't see the name there either. Well, if he comes in, he can catch up with us. I'd like to move a little bit to the more of the public side. And you know what? How about if we go with Mr. Stacy Spell? You know, you've been mentioned a number of times and how your program is helpful. please introduce yourself, your name and address, and tell us a little bit about the program, how it works, and what you could do to improve.
Good evening, all. My name is Stacy Spell. I am the program manager for Project Longevity New Haven. My address is 157 Church Street, 25th floor. Project Longevity is a group gang gun violence reduction initiative that has been in place since 2012. The main tools of Project Longevity are call-ins, which were mentioned, which are normally held every quarter. In this time of the pandemic, the last call-in we had was in February of 2020. We were able to successfully host a call-in on January 26, 2021, where we hosted 15 individuals. Please note that we were only the second gun violence intervention site in the country to host a call-in during the pandemic. We also plan on hosting another call-in in May. Our secondary tool, which has been mentioned, are the custom notifications, which is the same message from the call-in, that we want you alive, safe, and out of jail. That is delivered in a personal message. And that message is usually delivered by either myself, police officers, and members of the community. Our secondary mission is to reconcile community to police and police to community. Now, we've heard spoken about all the relationship building, and relationships, let's make no mistake, are power. It is not what you know, it is who you know. And when we are able to empower these young men, speak to them as, for me, to speak as that uncle, to speak as that father, to speak as that grandfather, that neighbor across the street, but to speak to them in a way with respect, dignity, and love, it has an effect. Now, we haven't quite arrived there in that we are perfect. Have we made some gains? Yes. What are the plans for 2021? We're going to continue in building relationships. But I must be clear that the relationships should not only exist within the law enforcement community. Project Longevity is always looking to broaden and to expand the community voices that are a part of this process. Because it is those credible messengers, whether it be the mom and pop, the coach, the teacher, whoever, but that shows up with us and speaks with that family or of that individual with love and respect. It goes a long way. We plan on stepping that up. We're planning on broadening our coalition of community voices, because it is truly not only just the police that have to solve this problem, the community has to play a role too. Yeah. It's time out for the community watching while stuff develops on their streets or in the area, and then shortly thereafter there's a body on the street and somebody's child will not be returning home. So we have to get more community voices into this process, not only as people on the custom notifications, but as people that are willing to lend their synergy, to bring their energy, that we can address these young men to empower them. Project Longevity this year has received substantial funding, which goes out of what has historically been. We have received funding so that we will be able to help young men with housing, with education, with trade schools. We have received layers of funding that we can address the food insecurity. We receive funding that we can address all those ills that we need to speak to, those socioeconomic factors. But it's not something that can be done in silos. So Project Longevity will be stepping up our engagement, not only reinforcing those relationships we have within law enforcement, but strengthening, building community, getting community engagement, getting community to play an active role on what happens in it. Now, you don't have to be as bold and as loud as I am, but guess what? When you step to someone in love, with respect, with dignity, it goes a long way. Now, Jerry, my hair isn't as gray as yours, but we've been around a long time. And we know this works. We know that when you speak,
I don't color my hair.
We know that when we speak with people with dignity, when we really bring the entire community, not only clergy, service providers, nonprofit agencies, mom and pops, traditional leaders, non-traditional leaders. When we bring all of that from the community into this, yes, we have a way and a mechanism and a means to slow the violence down. We will never eradicate all the violence that happens in our community, but we can at least darn well start by trying with a different approach in humanity, civics, and engagement. Thank you.
You said a lot in 5 minutes.
I'm used to it, brother. I'm used to it. That's fast.
Actually, it sounded like we were in church.
You had to go there, Jerry.
I'll teach you to talk about my hair. So speaking of church, I see next person I'd like to open up and say something to us, the Reverend Bosie Kimber. Name and address, please, sir. Thank you for coming.
Boise Kimber, 605 Dixwell Avenue, New Haven, 06511. I think everyone knows that we have a gun problem here in New Haven. And the chief has stated that they made 21 arrests, picked up 21 guns. I want to see how we make this partnership that you all are talking about. How does it transfer into this community? And how does the community become partners with law enforcement, with probation? I did not hear anyone from juvenile probation on here tonight. So my concern is, how do we bridge this gap with law enforcement and the community? Do we just want to put everybody in jail? Or do we want to have relationships that we can sit at the table and talk about how we bridge the gap with the community? Because there is no community, there is no relationship with law enforcement in the community. Now, I may have those relationships, but do the community know their officers? Is there policing, community-based policing now? Do people get out of their cars and walk and introduce themselves? I think one of the biggest issues that we're facing is the fact that the new officers do not know the community. You cannot have 15 white officers in Dixwell, Newhallville, who have never lived in Dixwell, Newhallville, or who've never lived in the Hill, who drive in, drive out. How do we bridge that gap? How do we bring the state's attorney, which I have a relationship with and thinks he's done a great job, the New Haven Police Department, Yale Police Department, and this community together to talk about how we deal with the crime? All I'm hearing tonight, we locking up people. We locking up people. And I heard Stacy say they got money to deal with the homeless, the hunger, jobs. How are we going to do that? And that is just not Stacy's responsibility and his job. That is a city job also. What are we going to create for youth? How are we going to deal with this? Because if you look at it today, we got 7 homicides thus far. How are we going to deal with this? We can't lock up everybody. The Board of Education should be a part of this also. Some of those kids are in school. So it becomes somewhat frustrating that the control of what we have worked so hard to do and to be is out of control. We got to revamp this, and we got to bring more people to the table. And that every person who is on this Zoom, a webinar, has to be accessible and to say, we want this to stop. And here's some alternatives. Thank you, Captain Antoon, for allowing me to say this. But I do think that we don't have enough police officers. Overtime is out of control. We don't have enough people on the street, officers on the street. You know, people talk about defunding the police. We're taking money from the police department. We got our own problems. It's why we cannot patrol. People say, well, they can't get out of the car because ain't enough of them to walk the beat this day and time. So it's frustrating to me, but I'm willing to work as I'm working with Yale and New Haven Police and State's Attorney, U.S. Attorney, to see how we bridge this gap, because there is a gap that must be bridged. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Reverend Kimber. It was, and I'm sure many of us, almost everyone, there's over 50 people on this web call right now. And I'm sure we all have to agree with you. All right, we move on to a portion where we can have some of my colleagues on a committee ask questions of any of the guest panelists, starting with my vice chair.
Have any questions at this time? I will let my other colleagues ask questions.
Alder Crespo. Did we lose Alder Crespo? I know he was driving. We can come back to him. Alder Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to everyone who has presented. Should we ask 3 questions for now, like we usually do?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks. I guess my first question, I appreciated Mr. Spell talking about needing more people involved in the outreach. I guess I'm curious kind of what the plan is to get to recruit those people, and has that started?
In answer to your question, Alder Roth, yes, that has started. That is always a work in play. So we are always trying to supplement the bodies of Project Longevity and our mission. So we are always looking for talent, the coaches of the area, teachers, community folk that are willing to come out on these customs and speak with candid. I spoke with retired Fire Lieutenant today, Gary Tinney. Gary used to roll with us from the Firebirds. Again, it was imperative for me that I felt that we needed people who look like these young men and women to speak to them. So we're always looking to incorporate more people. There are some coaches that have said yes, but we have to keep in mind, we've been in lockdown for almost a year. Our last call-in was held in, as I said, in February. We came back, I went on for a vacation, went to Hawaii, came back March 9th. We've been locked down since March 10th, since this very day. It has impeded us. We have been trying to do things virtually, but the process of bringing more people into the process is always a game changer. It's something that the wheel is constantly moving because it's imperative. We can't say enough. Relationships are where the power lies. So when citizens have a relationship with their district manager or their beat officer, instead of me calling downtown to 946-6316, I call my district manager, Captain Antoons. I've got a problem with my neighbor, Brian Wingate. He's fixing cars, dumping oil. Could you come by and could you say something to him? That's how we create change. That's how we create change. It's power in those relationships. And as we look to add more bodies and add more voices, and I say constantly hear me saying, credible voices, because not everybody has a credible voice. Not everybody has a voice that these young men will listen to. So we have to bring credible voices that will be able to speak to them and that hopefully they will be able to respond to. Our Assistant Chief, Carl Jacobson, I can't speak enough about. I brag that that's my wingman. That's my partner. Because here's someone that has a credible, genuine voice. He is recognized for his care, for his passion, and for being real. So as long as we keep building at that, we're going to get somewhere. The more people we can bring into the process, young, old, fat, skinny, tall, black, white, Jew, Muslim, Sikh, the more people we can bring into it, the better off we will be. The more people we can get to say, when something happens on our street, we're just going to stand out in the street and we're just going to stand there, because people don't want to do dirt when there's witnesses. So bringing new people into the process is always part of the plan. That's something we're looking to embark on, expanding the community voices, expanding the community engagement. Because I can't say this enough. And for the almost 7 years I've been here, I've stood on this. The community has to play a role too. We can't just wait on the police department to do it all, especially in these times. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you very much for that. My second question goes to the point of having police officers who know and reflect their communities, which I think is a very important point. And I guess I know we've been trying to recruit new officers, and I'm curious, in that pipeline of officers, how many are local people from New Haven?
So, Alder, the list that was just certified of 176 officers, we're waiting on HR to give it. That just came out today to us. We're waiting on the breakdown of who is New Haven, residents. So I can definitely get that and I can push it out so that everyone can have that. But yes, we're always looking better ways to recruit officers from the community, and having to recruit virtual has been tough. You know, we haven't been able to go to colleges. We haven't been able to go to a lot of places just because of gatherings, but we always are trying, and we are recruiting throughout the year. We've changed our style. So we're constantly recruiting. We're constantly using social media. We're constantly using all of our tools so that there's not like we recruit, we hire, and then we stop. If we're constantly doing it, if we're doing it throughout the year on a regular basis, it helps us to build our pool of candidates. And looking at other things that we can enhance as well, like using our Explorer program, because we don't always use that to the best of our ability. And these are a wonderful group of kids, but they can go up to 21. And then the thought would be to move right through high school and right into that gap before they can become a police officer in college, and then come right into the police department, because they've already kind of seen how it worked and understand and have the buy-in of the community and the commitment to the community. So there are some things we're looking at to think about it differently and how we could do a better job.
Great, thank you. And that would be great if through the chair, you could give the breakdown of where folks are from. And I guess my final question for now, I appreciate the point that State's Attorney Griffin made about sort of the 121 non-fatal gun-related assaults being an important figure to look at. How many of those have been solved, and kind of what steps are being taken for those that haven't? And yeah, I'm curious if there's sort of repeat offenders, we think, in those, or it's 121 separate people involved.
If I could answer that, unless Pat, do you want to answer that? I have the number, but.
I'll defer to you, Carl.
Yes, sir. So we've had 22 arrests of those 121. Some of those are multiple shootings, so the average comes out to something, it's low. But I was going to make a point that State's Attorney Griffin said that is an important point, that we need to focus more on those. And we do have a shooting task force, and it's been a little depleted, but as you heard Yale say, they were willing to give us some personnel for that. Chief Dominguez and I are looking at moving some more personnel over there, getting our federal partners more involved. ATF has made a commitment to that shooting task force. FBI has made a commitment to that shooting task force. So we'll have agents, and the state's attorneys have as well. So you'll have inspectors, agents, and detectives and officers working those shootings. We kind of got away from that. We got to get back to that. And we also just received the Gun Crime Intel Center grant, which we're going to use that money and that intelligence to assist us in those shooting cases. And I know Alder Antunes, I think you approved that, so we appreciate that. Your committee approved that. That it's about to be up and running. We had a big meeting today with our federal partners who kind of give us the setup and what we can do better. And that's going to kick off right away. And with that kicking off, we're going to bring in the other resources and restart that shooting task force, which will help. And I just wanted to answer one of your other questions that Chief Dominguez was answering. I don't know the breakdown, but I know number one is Tyler Evans, and he's a kid from New Haven, and he worked in Hill House. He works at Hill House now, and he's a great kid. And these are the type of kids we need. And like Chief Dominguez said, we're pushing it, but we can't recruit them alone. We need the narrative to be, hey guys, join the police department. All police aren't bad. You know, we need the community to push that out. Our image has been tainted, and for some reasons, yes, I understand that. But we need you guys on this call to get your nephews, your nieces, whoever you have. I'll give them an application ourselves. Chief Dominguez and I will walk an application to you. But I would say, Reverend Kimber, you had a great point, but we need your help in that. And when we have a recruiting drive, if we can have one and you attend, you know what I mean? That's what we need. We want people in the community to be police officers. But right now, people don't want to be police officers. So you know who can help us with that? You guys. And I think this is a good police department, and we just need to get more community members into the police department, and we need your help.
Chief Antoon, I've got to leave, but for another meeting, can I have one point to say, please?
Yes, Reverend, go ahead.
I think Chief Jacobson said something that is important. How are we going to recruit more Black and brown citizens of New Haven? That has to be a round table discussion on how we're going to do that. Not because there are a number of individuals that have applied, gone through the testing, the agility, and when they get to the psychological examination, well, I smoked weed 15 years ago. They hold it against them. So we've got to look at what questions are being asked during the psychological examination. That's where Black and brown and citizens of New Haven get dismissed. And so I wanted to raise that. Chief Jacobson, every chief around, they know that I support what they're doing, but I also support the fact that if we do not get more Black and brown citizens of New Haven on the streets, we're going to have this same conversation this time next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Reverend Kimber. I agree with you. I mean, sometimes a little question in the hiring process. Alder Crespo, you weren't here earlier and missed your turn. Give you an opportunity to ask a couple of questions of any of the guests.
I don't have no questions at this time, Mr. Chair. I was listening in, but I did not have an opportunity to take off my mic because there was too much background noise. But at this time, I certainly share the sentiments of the Reverend, where we would appreciate more initiatives to hire more Black and brown community, especially to be able to have a force that is from the community as well. So, but that's about it for me.
Thank you. I don't see Alder Haywood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alder Singh.
Thank you,
Hello,
Mr.
Chair.
Oh, you did show up. You weren't on there. Alder Hayward, do you have any questions for the panel?
Yes, I do. I I was curious in knowing the time that we live in now. Is there any like how can I say this? Is there any like classes or something that the police take? I mean, we're living in a time now that racial upheaval is really, really high. And out here in Ward 11, Ward 12, recently we've had a lot of shootings. And I was wondering, like, do you have a meeting where the officers get together and try to figure out how to better speak to the young African American individuals even in in all neighborhoods, but at this particular time, these two neighborhoods on Quinnipiac and Eastern have gotten a gang view. So I was just wondering, like, do you get together and talk about how to approach some of these kids? Like they are outside, they're still here, they're outside and they are visible. Do you have some type of meeting where you learn how to better speak or approach these kids to have some type of communication with them? I can talk to them, sure, but I'm not a police officer. And I think sometimes they need to hear that the police actually have their best interests in mind, and they're not just coming to grab them. And do you spend 10 or 15 minutes having this conversation with them to pull them out into, we can get some, but nothing can draw a child or a young teenager better than another teenager. So I just wanted to speak on that because recently out here, we've had gangs come from in town out here, and the shooting between Quinnipiac and Eastern Street is unbelievable.
Alder Haywood, are you directing your question to any particular person here?
I was really, not really one particular person. I just wanted to know, that the police feel and they have a need to stretch out to the young people of this the community, of this community, of Dixville community,
right.
have some type of
Well, let's give Chief Dominguez an opportunity to answer that.
Alder Hayward, thank you for that question. I think that reaching the juveniles in the communities is a very important piece of what the officers do, strive to do, can always do better doing, because those are, if we're able to reach and connect with the juveniles that are involved possibly in crime, are not involved in the crime, are in need of a mentor, in need of a person just to listen, that's where we can make these connections. That's where the community policing piece, that the philosophy that whether we're able to be staffed enough to be on walking beats or in a car, we have amazing officers. And can we always do it better? Can we always try to connect better? Absolutely. But if we don't continue to try and to talk and to have interactions with the youth, when it's not a police interaction, when it's just you're outside and we're driving through, we're on another call, and then we're really missing out on an important piece. We're missing out on an important piece of, potential intelligence, of just making sure that everything is going okay in the home. What do they need? What does mom need? Is there a reason why there's violence in this neighborhood? Is there something that we can do non-police related? Can we connect to some services? Because a lot of times police are the first one there, whether it's because we were called there or because we're just in the area. And it is very important. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because the youth are definitely an important piece in this violence and in curbing the violence for the community.
I truly believe, sometimes we speak to the teenagers, but maybe you need to go a step younger, and get some of the younger children within the community interested or, involved in something, if possible, if there is something for them to get involved. I think once they don't see the police as a enemy, or, they don't see them as help, but they see them as an enemy. They're coming to get me. They came and got my brother. They did my father. They did something, so sometimes these younger kids have a bad perception of the police and they grow with it. So I just was wondering if maybe in the future we could find something to target kids that are 10 before they get to 16. By the time they get to 16 and 17, they're already in their mode. But then maybe if you can make them interested when they're 10, high power can't handle everybody. And maybe if you, put a little personal touch on those that are younger, you might can put an impression on them to go further. That's
Absolutely.
all.
And hopefully we'll be able to reinvigorate and reinstitute all of our PAL programs. We have wrestling, we have basketball, we have the summer camp, all these things that we were unable to do last year. Hopefully we'll be able to make it, even if we do it in smaller numbers, in outside locations, in different types of sporting events where maybe it's not as much contact, where we're able to stay a little bit further apart. Absolutely. That was one of the big things that those younger youth, because they're able to come in at like 8 or 9 for PAL camp, definitely missed out on last year. And our officers love that. And we have a great group of officers who are always volunteering. And we have a great group of officers who have special talents that we don't even know about. We have track stars, we have wrestlers, we have basketball players who always want to volunteer their time for programs like this. So definitely. And we really hope that we'll be able to start that again very soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Let's go on to Alder Singh.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to make a statement. I want to thank all the law enforcement for being here tonight and everyone. I'd like to make a statement, and probably our law enforcement partner can take this. I want to look at this as a different perspective. We had 121 gun violent, and I know there's intelligence, looking at the guns, where the gun come from. I'm looking, how can we intercept and stop these guns from coming into our city? If we can intercept and stop that, then we will start to eliminate those gun violences. So I would like to look at it and that, in that perspective. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. And Alder Smith, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I would like to thank all of the law enforcement also for coming on here tonight. I just want to address a couple of things that my residents have been asking questions. First and foremost, they feel that the police have become a big disconnect to the communities. And the reason why they feel that, because after protests have went on and they call for defunding the police feel that they shouldn't have to go out here and do the work that is called for them to do, because residents are asking for it to defund the police department. And me personally, I'm always defending the police department based on my experience and so on. But when you go around and see for yourself what residents are actually talking about, and seeing on a corner, you can have crime, drug selling that is going on, but you find your police officers sitting down on another block in a lot somewhere, just chatting with one another. Supposed to have social distancing, but yet you're chatting with one another. They feel that if the police will sit on these different corners where crime is taking place, that can be a preventative portion also. Secondly, I want to know, what are you doing in regards to the homeless population? Because not just juveniles that are creating a lot of rhetoric that's going on into the communities, but you have homeless people that are coming in communities doing robberies and doing all other types of illegal activities that inside of communities. And we sat down, Chief Dominguez, we talked about different things within the hotels and so on. These are major problems that are occurring. But my biggest thing that I really want to address, and I think Alder Singh hit on it, and a couple of others hit on a couple of other things that I wanted to address. But on this gun violence, recently, a couple of months ago, we had 32 guns in this community here that was stolen from a place, an apartment. 32. Those guns were taken but never recovered. And I too want to know, what are we going to do about guns coming into these communities? How are these guns getting into these communities? And how are we going to prevent them? What are your measures of stopping or trying to stop the guns coming in? Because they're coming from somewhere. And I'm pretty sure you guys got a grip of where they're coming from, your intel with it. But how are we going to continue to stop this? One thing that I was basically looking at, you have a lot of people that have gun permits that are purchasing a large amount of guns. They can only use one or two. But then they're claiming that the guns have been stolen, but they're giving them to the streets. So you got all of these guns out on the street. How are we going to stop this from happening? And I'm pretty sure we have to go a whole different realm of getting the state to basically try to create a law for gun owners not to purchase so many guns at one time, to prevent them from going onto the street. But that's what's happening. They're coming onto the street. And the last thing I want to say, community want to get involved. They want to be involved. But when they try to get involved, they get pushed back. So how are we going to become more friendly to community? How are we going to be more engaged into community? Because I remember police used to go out and just, walk the street, walk the beat. Even if they were sitting in their cars, they get out and walk a block. I was happy to see when I traveled down Newhallville to see a couple of cops on the bikes. It did my heart some good. But we want to see more of that, not just sitting in the car having a coffee. Stand on the outside of the car to have a coffee. Or stand on the outside to talk to another officer. Say hi to a resident. You'd be surprised just speaking what intel you'll get back from that resident by just being friendly to them. And I do too want to see children more engaged in with police, the way that it used to be. And I'm interested in learning more about your Explore program of how we can get a lot more children involved so that they can become police officers, because we definitely need to have more New Haven people to work in New Haven. The last class that came out, only 4 out of 18. 4 New Haven residents out of 18 were hired to be a police officer. And to me, that's sad. We have to do better as a city, and we have to do better as a department. And I just hope that the department comes up, because right now I'm to a level that I'm not happy where the department is, because if the fireman can run into a burning fire during the COVID pandemic, then the police officers need to be able to prevent crime during the COVID pandemic. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for this time.
If you don't mind, I'll start to answer some of those questions. Is that all right?
Yes, Chief, go ahead.
I'll start with the gun stuff. We do extensive traces on all the guns, and we see a lot of the guns come from down south where the gun laws are less strict. And I'm not telling you anything new. We've been focusing recently with ATF on situations like you talked about. One person, we recovered a gun from a crime. We checked on that person. They had multiple guns, something like 30. We went over to the house, found that they're now reporting all these guns stolen. So we do have some new laws in Connecticut that we're using, to enforce on that. But we have to take it a step further and try to stop them before they give those guns out. We've given out a lot of permits. A lot of people have been requesting gun permits recently, but we've also taken a lot of permits away. And we requested that the state police take those permits away due to misuse of those gun permits. So That's a great question. That is something that we're looking at. I don't know if Scott Reardon's still on and wants to mention anything, or Mr. Griffin, but it is something that we need to focus on more. But the guns are coming from the South. We got to stop that. Another question you talked about was children, and somebody else had mentioned children too. And the chief hit it. Chief Dominguez hit it right on the nose when she talked about PAL. But I would also say to you, SROs. We have not had SRO contact in the schools since March because of COVID. And when we do, if we do have the opportunity, because that's still in limbo, whether we're going to have SROs or not, I would say that we do have, not to go to the younger kids' schools for any kind of enforcement or anything else, just to walk through the schools and meet them. There's tons of stories of officers in New Haven who live in New Haven that started here because they met an SRO. And I completely agree with you. And I would say, Alder Smith, that Chief Dominguez and I will make a point of restarting that, hopefully, when schools open again, and get to that, get those leagues open, get those kids playing with our cops again. We do 3-on-3 basketball tournaments throughout the city with Project Longevity. We're going to do that again. We just can't do it now. But that's so important, and you're right. And those relationships build into community members becoming cops. So we need to do that better. And I would say that you hit it right on the head. As for pushback from the police, that's discerning to hear. But I think that we also have told our officers, hey, one person per car, limited contact with the community. Well, we're getting to a point now where we don't have to say that anymore. So we'll be able to say, hey, get out there back in the community. And Chief Dominguez, I think you were with us as well. We did the housing walks. And remember doing the housing walks just recently, everybody said, we want a walking beat. We want a walking beat. So no matter how we make it happen, we're going to have to make that happen. We're going to get them out of their cars, walking around, talking to people again when it's safer, I think we're getting to the other side of that.
Chief Dominguez, do you want to offer any additional?
I think Chief Jacobson said everything that I would say. Yeah, I'll wait for if there's anything further, so I don't take up everyone's time where we can't get through everything.
Alder Smith, you all set?
Yes, sir. And thank you, Chief Jacobson. Thank you, Sir Chair.
Thank you. Alder Wingate.
Thank you, Chair. Once again, thank everybody for coming out, all the law enforcement. I have a question. And my question is, how are the officers? How are the officers? We all live in this pandemic. We all have family. We all have friends. And I know it's their job to do, but I'm just curious to see how's the morale of the police officers.
That's right.
How is the morale of the FBI? How is the morale of Patrick Griffin? I don't know him, but the first time I'm meeting him, I would like to know, because I have a follow-up question. I know how Mr. Spell is doing, but I want to know how is your team?
So I think our team is on the wave up, on the positivity wave. I think that we as a police department, as a law enforcement community, dealt with a lot of challenges. I think there was a lot of stress and worry on the minds of the police officers, but not just them, their families. And I think that worry for their families during a pandemic, affected them. We have things like peer support. We have EAP. We push a lot of mental health and mental health awareness in the police department. It's something that we try to destigmatize. We try to normalize. We do wellness checks on the officers with EAP, which is something that not many police departments in the state do. We're one of the few. And it's important. It's important because we don't want to know when an officer is struggling at the end. We want to know that the officer is struggling when we're able to intervene in the beginning, or as soon to the beginning as we can. And I think in the past, people were afraid to say, oh, I think so-and-so is drinking too much. I think so-and-so is staying out too late, things like that. And that affects your day-to-day life. That affects your relationships at home, your relationships at work, your relationships with the community. So, but I do think that morale is coming up. Morale is a tough thing. It ebbs and flows. They feel sometimes overworked. They feel that there's we ask a lot of them, but we don't always give them all of the resources that they need to be able to do the job that we're asking. So I think we, as the chiefs, need to make sure that we're constantly supporting and we're listening, and we're giving them the little things that they might need to make their job a little bit easier, and at home as well. You know, mental health, but also literally everything that goes, support for their families. And I do think, like I said, I do think that we're starting to see these officers morale really pick up again, and we're going to see positive results from this. We're going to see positive engagements in the community, and especially when, you know, restrictions end and we're able to police like we want to be able to. We're able to have the officers have the joy of playing 3-on-3 basketball, things like that, that really make wonderful connections as a police officer, but not in a normal traditional police role.
Thank you. That question is for the Yale Police Department as well. That's for you, Chief.
Thank you for that, Holder Wingate. I mean, just the mere fact that you recognize that certainly means a lot. So before I let the other chiefs comment, I could tell you Yale PD in particular, you know, doing very, very well given the circumstances. I mean, we are all operating in a very unique environment, and we have been for such a long time. So we too have had the fortunate luxury, so to speak, like Chief Dominguez just indicated, that we've been able to focus our attention on our own officers and support staff as well, in terms of wellness checks and EAP and just our regular interaction day in and day out. But you know what amazes me? It truly amazes me that, you know, our folks are coming to work day in and day out to do the job, what they signed up for. You know, clearly evident in what we've been involved in is 2 of our officers locating, you know, the baby that was actually in the car of the vehicle that was stolen. I mean, this is the type of work that's being done by our folks, you know, through our law enforcement community, you know, not only locally, regionally, but in the state and across the country. So the mere fact that you recognize is certainly a testament to, you know, to you actually caring about, you know, the folks that are actually here to serve our communities, our shared communities. So with that, I'll let the other chiefs chime in, but thank you.
Anthony, you want to go?
Sure. And I echo what Chief Wozniak was saying. The officers have really been very positive during this time. This administration, and I give a lot of credit to Chief Higgins, immediately when COVID broke, came out with some policies and procedures to protect the officers. And I think we were very successful with that. The officers appreciated it and kept coming to work every single day and engaging the community. One of our officers in particular, Martha Ross, engaged the community by having our largest Thanksgiving service, serving over 800 families throughout the community in a pandemic. Also doing, you know, Christmas events and coat drives and a slew of other things. And one of the things I'm most proudest of is not only were they looking out for the community, they were looking out for one another. We did have a few officers who came down with COVID. And when those officers were out, they were reaching out to one another and making sure they were okay. We had 2 of our officers who were doing a walking beat right in the downtown area when a shooting took place. They were within feet of it, and they were able to add assistance to the gentleman who was defending himself from being robbed. But the officers reached out to those officers who had witnessed that shooting. So it's really been a time for people to step up and to really show who they are and to really, you know, let their character show through. And their morale has been really good. And I'm telling you, my morale is boosted by them stepping up and doing what needs to be done on a daily basis. Chief?
Yeah. Alder Wingate, so thankful that you asked that question. you know, we went through a period of time collectively where, you know, we want our officers to go out and take care of the community, but when you look at them, you can see it in their face. They want to know who's looking out for them. So as leaders, as law enforcement leaders on this call and elsewhere, we have to lead from everywhere. We have to lead in the community and also within our agencies. And we also need to show our officers how to reconnect with our community. Given COVID and everything else that we've gone through within the last 12 months, you know, we tell our officers, you know, a smile is a smile in any language. Make sure you smile. But at the same time, when you have a mask on, it's difficult to see that smile. So wave, do something to try to connect with the community. It works when we have community members that are eager to connect with our officers. But I don't want to stick anybody out on this call, but these chiefs that you see on this call from both departments and the state's attorney's office and all the other agencies, they're leading from both inside and outside their departments. They are everywhere all day, all the time, because there's no substitute for their presence. But that's what's needed right now. We can't use, you know, old tools to solve new problems. We need new tools to solve these new problems. And they've been around. With young officers, they have to lead from the front, and they're doing that. I commend them for that. But I really appreciate you asking that question.
You're welcome. You know, I asked that question because I understand that when you at your best, you do your best. And this panel tonight with so much power and so much strength, and truly we can do better. But this panel is about us working together tonight. This meeting that we call everybody here because we feel like we need this, you know, output. We need this outlet so we can get better for the city of New Haven. So I just wanted to put it out there that we are thinking about both sides of the coin here, understanding that, you know, once again, when you at your best, you would do your best. So, you know, thank you for answering my questions. And I yield to someone else if they have any more questions at this time.
I think I'll take my turn. First question for Attorney Griffin. You know, you can't solve everything with an arrest. And those who get arrested, of course, deserve what is doled out to them for their violations. And is that justice? Well, you know, a lot of times we look at those people in jail as just us. And sometimes there needs to be a change. Do you see any kind of change coming? Is there anything done differently through the court system? Are the judges looking at things differently? I know right now we're looking at releasing people in the jails. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question. It's a broad question. I think that what I can speak to directly is New Haven. What have we done differently in New Haven to reduce the amount of what I consider unnecessary incarcerations? In other words, individuals who are in prison for offenses that really don't merit jail sentences. One of the programs that we run here in New Haven is called the Early Screening Initiative. And the Early Screening Initiative is a program that we run out of the New Haven State's Attorney's Office, and every misdemeanor arrest is screened to determine whether or not the case should proceed in court before the person even gets into court. And so say, for example, you have an individual who's engaged in repeated acts of larceny. So somebody's going to a corner store and they're stealing repeatedly small amounts of products and perhaps selling those products on the street, or maybe even using those products. What's the underlying reason for that person to commit these acts? An offense like that carries 90 days in jail. 90 days is not in jail is not going to fix that individual. So the Early Screening Initiative is designed to try to get to do something that we haven't traditionally done in law enforcement, to do something that we haven't traditionally done in the court system, which is to try to look at the root cause and ask ourselves collectively as a group, why is this individual here in court today? And are there some steps that we can take to prevent that individual from coming back to court? So if that individual, for example, often it's substance abuse, many times it's mental health. Again, I think that we are looking at the court system and the criminal justice system with new eyes. We recognize that in New Haven, that we have to put our priorities on crimes of violence. But other acts do affect the community. And then the question is, you hit it on the head, Alder Antunes, what is justice? What is the appropriate response? Sometimes an arrest is enough to wake somebody up. But oftentimes we really need to try to get to the root problem. And that's something that I do think is new. I do think is innovative. And I do think is beginning to bear fruit. But these are new steps in the criminal justice system, to be candid.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Clifford. Griffin, see, I called you by the wrong name.
It's all right.
He was a good man. Next question is for, let's see, Stacy Spell. Very generally, you spoke about the program and the call-ins and whatnot. What's the penalty for not going to the call-in? If you have a call-in and one of your clients failed to show up?
So those that are mandated to attend our call-in are under the supervision of the Departments of Probation and the Department of Parole. So if a client who has been mandated to attend and does not have a lawful excuse, then it is incumbent that a sanction, but some type of penalty be placed on. Now, that's not always the truth, and that's not always the answer. Sometimes there are exceptions. But if you willfully didn't attend knowing that you were supposed to be there, yes, there are consequences.
And could you give me an idea of some numbers? How many are success cases? How many return back to the system?
So you got to remember, Project Longevity has been in existence since 2012. Our last call-in that was held on January 26, 2021, that was our 20th call-in. On an average, the numbers of attendees that attend the call-in are anywhere from 20 to maybe 35. Now, the stories that stand out in my time since I've been here since November of 2014, we have lost 4 people to death to gun violence. A number of people returned, not for gun violence offenses, but for technical violations. A technical violation can be that I'm out of sorts due to a personal problem and I start ducking my parole or probation officer. It's only a matter of time before there are consequences and you're ordered to be remanded or a violation of probation is issued. I think overall, most of the people that have come through Project Longevity, yes, we do have some success stories that have obtained gainful employment, enabling them to sustain a wage, a sustainable wage going forward in the future that elevates their family. We have success stories of those that didn't return to crime, didn't take us up on services, but never returned to crime. We're able to become that model civic citizen. And then it's a work in progress. We have a good portion of these young men who will reoffend. And for those, there are consequences. But the majority of the, let's say maybe a couple hundred that have come through, like I said, 4 to death, a minute number for technical, I'll say the majority for technical violations, and then a few for gun violations. But overall, not that many. The success, we can't measure the success, in my opinion, on just arrests or gun seizures. Yes, the gun seizures, they definitely help to elevate the environment on the street to make it more safety. But one of the goals that we look forward in Project Longevity if I've come out and I've spoken to Abby Roth twice, I spoke to her at a call and she stayed and we spoke and we talked about our future plans. And then I subsequently spoke to her on 2 custom notifications. And if she doesn't get it, it wasn't because the opportunity wasn't made. There have been a lot of stories that I'm sure Chief Jacobson won't want to share at this one, where people have bent over backwards to engage some of these young men that are engaged in group gang gun violence, that are suspected of being engaged in violence. The appeal is always going out to them, and that the bottom line, if you don't take us up on our services, I don't care if you don't take housing, you don't take training, you don't get groceries, you don't get whatever your basic needs. But the bottom line of it is that the violence will not be tolerated, and that there will be consequences for those actions. My father raised us with a hard head makes a soft behind. And a soft behind gets really tender when it's tenderized by a 6x8 cot, metal cot.
Thank you for that example. Yeah, and it's interesting, you mentioned a couple of things that I was focusing on for my next question for probation. But one of the things that was told to me by members of the police department was that a lot of these crimes now, things that are happening, shots fired, et cetera, are being done by people who are just getting out of prison. It's their time. Just like in the police department, it's a time when we're getting a lot of retirements. They said they're getting a lot of people out of the prisons. So I'm looking at Ms. Morano, and my question to you is, what kind of preparation is done before these people come out? I mean, they're in prison. They call it a correctional system. Do they correct anybody? I mean, do they teach them a trade? Do they teach them to do something when they come out, or they just open a door and say, listen, you're on probation for the next 3 years. Do the best you can. I'll see you.
Essentially, any program that they do while they're incarcerated is a credit towards an earlier release, and not necessarily a training, giving them tools once they reach the community. So at the time they're released and they come into the probation office, the intake is to assess those needs. What is their high school or their education? Do they need to get back to adult education? What is your job training? If you have no prior job training or experience, we get them involved. Emerge is a great program that I refer a lot of young men to, where it's on the job paid training for skills. And a lot of those kids walk out of there with a skill base and an opportunity to work with a certain company that's willing to take these kids on. Unfortunately, with the employment not being as, the opportunities are not there for them, I'm pushing education. And, you know, talking to their families. I talk to a lot of families when we do the home visits. I ask to meet the parents, the mother, the siblings. And a lot of times when Chief Jacobson and Sergeant Merced come to meet with these kids, they're giving a lot of different opportunities through probation and Project Longevity. So whatever these kids are saying their needs are, we are trying to address them at best.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Antunes, if I may.
Where is that coming from?
This is Dr. Dalal, CSA.
Oh, yes, name and address, sir.
Yes, Mabel Dalal, 115 Linden Street in New Haven. I just wanted to add one more dimension to just your question, to let folks know that just a couple of weeks ago, we did formally launch a reentry center in partnership with Project More, and really customized to assess and deliver coordinated services to those who are at the end of sentence. The concept there is those who come directly from DOC or dropped off at Project More are escorted inside, are given an on-the-spot assessment, and there's also a component of pre-planning in place where if we know someone has a specific need like housing, we try to have a housing provider right there on the spot to meet them. So that's, again, I just wanted to make sure that folks were aware that this is an important component and dimension of services coming from the social services side. And we've been in very close collaboration with the PD on the launch of this new service as well.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate that. Any of the other committee members have one more question? Because I'd like to wrap it up. It's getting a little late. All right, first we have Alder Roth, then Alder Wingate.
Alder, thank you, Mr. Chair. Alder Wingate can go first because he's before me in our usual order.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to know from Mr. Spell, how can we get involved with the program, and if there's any information that you have ready available for alders or just the community to try to get involved with that program. I'm very familiar with the program. As you know, we did this together 2012. But I just want to know if there's something that we can put out there.
So I always have printed material that I will make available upon request. Secondly, I am a person that, for most people who know me, if you say, Stacy, can you, then guess what? I'm going to be there. If you say, can you speak to my youth church group? If you say, can you speak to my fraternity? If you can speak to my sorority, if you could speak to my block watch, if you can speak to my family. We need the word to get out from whether, I know, COVID has really put us all in flux and put us out of contact with one another. But we are still endeavoring to be innovative in thought and engagement virtually, proving that even an old dinosaur like me can learn to unmute a Zoom meeting without difficulty.
It's okay. You all dinosaurs up here.
I'm not a dinosaur.
Any organization,
Pterodactyl.
I don't turn anyone away. The whole goal of this is to bring as many facets as possible. There's strength in numbers. I'm a bad man by myself. But guess what? When we put all these people on this panel together and we link arms and we say consistently and tenaciously, we will not be moved and that we're going to keep moving forward no matter what, then we're on to something. But as long as we let personalities, egos, and silos, and the dollar divide us, we will always be a divided community. Our community, communities of color, have always had a fractured relationship with the police, but never before have we been in a place where we went from cleaning up City Hall to running City Hall. Never before did we have people in place that might be able to utilize their power, their collective power, so that we can affect change. That's what it's all about. Change doesn't happen overnight. It's a tenacious, consistent process. And as long as I'm around, I live so that my living will not be in vain. So that if you ask me, I will come. If you ask for material, I will get it to you.
I appreciate you.
Always appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you.
Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Roth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is, I don't have a sense of, if you sort of look at the violent crime that's happening, if we know what percentage or approximately is gang related, how much is domestic violence, how much is driven by economic factors, how much is random, just trying to think of how you solve these things. You use different means depending on what the underlying cause is. And maybe we don't have a complete sense, but I'm trying to understand that. Thank you.
Chief Dominguez, good to take that? So that's a great question. We have seen an increase in group violence, which is exactly what Project Longevity targets, group violence. And I would say in 2019, I mean, in 2020, excuse me, there was like a 46% increase in group violence, meaning the shootings and the homicides were somewhat group related. And that's why we believe in what we did before to get it down is going to work now to get it down, because it's very similar. But I would say to you, it's all across the board. Everything you said. We have a spike in domestic shootings. We've had a couple of arrests related to domestic violence ending in shootings, which are not abnormal, but more than usual, correct? I mean, and just for instance, in 2020, we had, I think it was 15 self-inflicted shootings. They didn't count into 120, but 15 self-inflicted shootings, that just means there's more guns out there. There's more people carrying guns, and that's a big issue. I think, does that answer your question? And then I just want to revert back to what Alder Wingate said. First of all, thank you for that about how our officers are doing. And I need a hug. Next time I see you, if it's COVID good, I'm getting a hug. But my point is, we have awesome officers, and I kind of want to say something. I want to say something that we're not saying, right? We're in a tough time. We have a lot of violence. We're losing a great leader. Chief Reyes is a great leader. But what Chief Reyes did is he left two people behind that have the passion and the heart to do this. Chief Dominguez is going to make a great chief, and we're behind her. And our officers are awesome, you know, and we sometimes, Alder Smith, we got to get him a little more awesomer and out of the car, but our officers are awesome, and we're going to do everything possible to make them successful for the community. And you've all said it. Everything you've said, we're taking notes. We're going to do all this stuff. But the bottom line is we're losing a great leader, but we got a great leader stepping in for him, and we're going to move forward. And we appreciate this type of stuff. Anytime you want to do this, Alder Antunes, give me a call. Give us a call. We'll be here.
That goes to one of my segues. Before I give it back to the chair, I think we should do this in May, at the beginning of May, just before the summer hits. I will ask that we reconvene this panel.
Yes. Yes.
Very good point. And to start that off, what I'm going to do is ask each of our members to make a commitment to one item of success for now, because hopefully you'll be planning for more. Something that you can get done positive that would help stop the violence in this city. We'll start with you, Chief Dominguez.
I think we need to look to one action item that the police department can take is looking to the youth, is to finding a way for us to do something that is within COVID guidelines, however, that we have been lacking. So I think for my piece will be, let's reconnect somehow with the youth as an action item.
Great, thank you. Chief Higgins, how can Yale Police Department help in a positive way?
Chief, I'm sorry, Captain Antunes.
Thank you.
Great meeting. I'm on my, when Chief Dominguez takes over, I will be on my 6th New Haven Police Chief. I've been through 3 mayors, 2 university presidents, 4 U.S. attorneys, and 2 states attorneys. So I've been here for a minute. I say all that because I've seen New Haven and the New Haven Police Department be the convener. I've seen them tackle gun crime and all sorts of other issues. I saw them and was a young man when community policing was first introduced to New Haven. And it works and it matters. It impacts people's lives. We're going to continue to commit to working with the New Haven Police Department, but I'm also going to commit to working with this group and the chiefs to push us to think about what's next. What's next? Should we be assessing the infrastructure of the way policing is done in this city to be able to take on the challenges that we're facing? We're facing some really complex challenges. So I commit to that.
Thank you, Chief Higgins. I got to say that New Haven Police Department has always been one of the best I've talked to, dealt with, worked with police departments around the country and some from outside of the country. And it's always been one of the best, and we hope we can keep it there or get it back there, whichever we need to do. Let's move on to Mr. Reardon. How can the ATF help us? What can you promise us for the next meeting?
I could promise you that we will continue to stop the flow of guns into New Haven. It is not a problem unique to New Haven, but we will continue to do everything we possibly can. That includes sending people down to Georgia and North Carolina and South Carolina, like we have, both New Haven detectives and ATF agents. And in addition to Alder Smith, I'm aware of that case that you referred to about the 35 guns. We discovered that, and that's a big problem too. Lawful gun owners putting guns in the hands of people who shouldn't have them, and then claiming they were stolen. It's a big problem. We will continue to address it, which will lead to you get the guns off the street, and hopefully will affect violent crime as well.
Great, thank you. It's a big one from the federal side. We appreciate it. Hopefully you can talk to those at FBI, because we had someone who was supposed to be here and they aren't. Move on to State's Attorney Griffin. What can we expect from the prosecutorial side?
Well, I think if we're talking about efforts to proactively reduce gun violence in New Haven, I think that the State's Attorney's Office is committed to reinvigorating the shooting task force concept. It's a concept that I think that if properly applied does work. And in its simplest terms, it is working on these non-fatal shootings to prevent fatal shootings from occurring 30 days or 6 months or even 2 or 3 years down the line. And so I'm committed from the resources of my office to commit prosecutors and inspectors. One thing that I didn't mention tonight is that I staff an office at the New Haven Police Department with an inspector and a prosecutor weekly. And why, you might ask, why would a prosecutor be over at the New Haven Police Department? To help particularly the younger investigators with their investigative skill sets, such as preparing search warrants, preparing arrest warrants, preparing court documents. And so I will give you 100% commitment that we will continue that and as best as I can enhance those efforts as we go forward in 2021.
Thank you. I think you're doing a class at the police academy too, generally, don't you?
So Alder Antunes, we've taught over 20 classes at the New Haven Police Department. I also personally teach at the New Haven Police Academy. We also did the Clergy Academy. So we feel here at this office that one of the major components of our duties is to help assist the local law enforcement learning the new laws, keeping up with the laws, teaching everything from search and seizure to the police accountability bill. So, you know, we are constantly interacting with the New Haven Police Department.
Thank you. Thank you. You know what, Dr. Jalal, we're going to put you in on this one and give us something that you can bring back as a success in a couple of months.
What I really hope to bring back in a few months is that we have a sustainable funding model for the reentry center. Right now, we were able to identify some funds for the startup. There's a bill at the state legislature that would help us out a lot with respect to ongoing continuous funding for that center. So that's what I hope to bring back to you at the next meeting.
Thank you. And you know, I had to close it off with Mr. Spell, because I know you're going to preach a little bit. So tell us, what can you either change, promise, or improve in that whole program that you can bring back to us? And we're going to hold you to this. We're going to hold everybody to this. So remember, when we have our next meeting in May, and I'll get back to you, Alder Wingate. Let's hear what Mr. Spell has to say.
So I am a person that lives in this community, shops in this community, worships in this community, walks my dog, runs in this community. My word is bond. The thing that I am committed to is creating and building more community bridges, bringing greater community collaboration, bringing more voices from the community, trying to heighten that sense of engagement so that we can have self-determination for communities that are in the midst of gun violence but have never been shown a way out, or who have never had people walk the streets and talk to their people and say, hey, brother, you can do X, Y, Z. Hey, sister, you can do X, Y, Z. So I commit building broader bridges, building a larger coalition, to delving into an area which is not really Project Longevity. Project Longevity is geared for 18 and above. We are forced sometimes to deal with 18 and below because they can become the most violent offenders. There is something in the works to address the youth and to bring their voices and to cultivate their voices for future activism and advocacy. That's what I commit to. And as I said, my word is bond. You can remind me of it, but I can tell you that I will be living it by May. And by May, we will be ready for our second call-in of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Wingate?
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if you can see this, but we have a lot of questions in the chat, and I don't want the public to think that we are not paying attention to your questions right now. Perhaps we can wrap those up and respond by email, or we can have a small group of questions and answers in our next meeting. But I didn't want the public to think we was not paying attention to some of their questions that was in the chat.
Yes, I wasn't following all of them. I read over some. Unfortunately, some of them were not pertained to our topic here, but we will try and get some of the answers and see if we have email addresses for these people, we can email them back the answers.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for reminding me.
And I did have a question from the chair of the youth committee. They want to know how can they partner up with some organizations to help from the committee perspective.
Say that again.
So I'm a part of the youth committee, and the youth committee chair reached out and just want to know how can they help and be a liaison as well, you know, with the Stacy Spell, with the police department. They want to know how can they incorporate the youth committee to help out. You know, it's an olive branch being out there. It's an olive branch being out there from the chair of the youth committee. That she want to know how can she help.
And I think it's a good point. Let's, you and I, put them in touch with the police department, with Stacy Spell, and maybe get some of these programs going, some of the awareness, because it was mentioned earlier. And I know for a fact that many times these young kids get involved and they start early in life and it becomes a way of life. And that's one of the patterns that we really need to change. And it's going to take everybody. It takes the community, it takes the police, and it takes social service agencies. Everybody's got to take a part in it. So let's, you and I will get the names to the police department, to Stacy Spell, and anyone else that's on this, our panel here that we feel may be able to help with youth.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for bringing that up. Is there any other point regarding this topic that someone on our committee or our panel would like to mention before we close?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That was
Alder Crespo.
I'm looking. Oh, that's why I don't see your face. Alder Crespo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask, probably this is more for Chief Dominguez and Chief Jacobson. Number one, I want to thank every single agency that is present this evening, and I certainly thank my colleague, Mr. Vice Chair, for that question, because we certainly, as the Board of Alders, we listen to the constituents, but we also collaborate with every agency within the department, within every department in the city of New Haven, and is our concern to ensure that the city as a whole is operational and healthy, fiscally, emotionally, psychologically, in any way, shape, or form. And my question is, one of the things that I've been having several dialogues with my constituents, and if you pay close attention into the Fairhaven area, they are very adamant about having officers within the community. They love the police department. They collaborate, and they're able to have that relationship with the police department. The only thing that is happening now, because of this coronavirus, is the lack of interaction. The police beats has been something that has been a hot topic within my community. They love police beats. They love seeing the officers walking around, interacting. We understand that the pandemic has caused a little bit of, the fact that they can't be too close to the constituents because we are unaware who has the coronavirus or not. Nevertheless, the community would love to see more beats. I understand that the numbers are a little bit dwindling down as the force gets cut a little bit. But is there anything that's going to happen in 2021 where there's going to be more beats out in the community, and more of the police beats? I heard that it would be great. I believe my colleague Alder Smith stated that instead of being in the inside the car, to be outside of the car drinking coffee, but taking a step further, walking around. Something that the community within Fairhaven, I can speak of, that they love is seeing the officers walk around, because officers interact, they engage, they ask questions, how you doing, good evening, and they also serve as a deterrent to those who are in the community to cause trouble. They're like, oh, here comes a cop, let's leave. But not only that, it also brings back that safe feeling that at least we have someone who's out there watching over us, protecting us. So I guess that was my question. If in the future, in 2021, if we're going to be able to increase or implement some sort of strategy to have at least police beats, maybe not every day of the week, but at least maybe rotation, maybe every Monday, every Friday, every Wednesday, just have a beat out there that would definitely come in handy, especially in my neighborhood where there has been multiple gunshot, there's been multiple homicides, multiple injuries, stab wounds, you name it, car thefts, breaking and entering. I mean, there's been a lot of crimes happening within this community, and the police department is one that the community always feel that they are more than welcome to be in our community. We don't share the sentiment that they're out to get us. We actually share the sentiment that they're out to protect us. And I definitely advocate for my constituents, but I also believe wholeheartedly that the police department is an exceptional department here in the city of New Haven, because I definitely have interacted with officers. I remember when I was in high school, when I went to Cross for 4 years, and every time I was at Cross and I came across a police officer, Officer Ingles, I believe the officer that passed away, Officer Picagli, I believe. There was many officers that would interact with me, and they would say, "Hey, how you doing?" And stay in school, make sure you're doing your work, and they were very good. And I remember that maybe that it was out of protocol, but every time I was walking in the community, let's say I'm walking from Cross home, if I needed a ride, they would help me. They would transport me back and forth. This, hey kid, hop right in. And I went from hey kid to hey Crespo, what are you doing? Hop right in. That's where I learned to see, Officer Casanova back when he was a supervisor, when he was a lieutenant. And I was able to learn from the police department that they're there to help you. They're not there to just like my colleague stated that, Alder Haywood, that maybe we should be approaching these youth, these young kids at an early age to show that they're not there to harm us. They're actually there to help us. And I believe that we need more local hiring of the police department within our community. It will certainly help. But I think just, Chief Dominguez stated that they try to destigmatize the fact that they need to have self-awareness. Well, let's destigmatize the fact that it's not bad to be an officer. It's a good thing. It's an honorable thing. Let's remind the community that it's not just wearing a badge, it's actually doing public service. I guess that was my question and comment. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that, Alder Crespo, especially the end, because we have proud officers who love their job and who love the police department and who love law enforcement and love the city. And they're proud to be police officers. And those are the officers we have on our streets and in our communities. But to your question of more walking beats, I think that every district manager would love to have the resources to have the walking beats because they see the value of that and the benefit of that. I think what some are trying to do to kind of bridge the inability to have that right now is bicycles, which right now in the snow is not too good, but you see them downtown. One of the alders said they saw them on Dixwell Avenue, or maybe it was Reverend Kimber saw them on Dixwell Avenue. We want more of that because it does allow for easy engagement because you're out there in the community. So when resources allow us, we have 16 that are in the FTO program. We have another 5 that are going to graduate from the Meriden Police Academy on March 19th. And now we're starting a hiring process. Those officers, we have the ability to move them into different shifts and different use them in different capacities due to their probationary status. So that's always a good resource for us to be able to say, okay, for 30 days, you're going a day shift, you're going to walk Grand Avenue. You're going to be moved to this shift now for a couple of weeks, and we have a little bit more flexibility. And it's allows those new officers, which speaks to that other getting to know the community and our community policing philosophy, allows them to engage and teaches them to engage, because we're also dealing with a group of individuals who don't communicate, right? This generation of kids, if you will, they text everything. So they need to learn that, we could still use old fashioned forms of communication, like speaking, and to be able to connect in a different way. And that's teaching a generation that's focused on electronics to do something in a different way. But it's definitely something that we agree with you, Alder. Resources are what have us short, but we're looking to make gains into rebuilding our numbers and to moving up as long as, we're able to.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. And I think adding to our list for next meeting, roundtable, we need to add Board of Education, that was mentioned, and juvenile court system. I kind of thought of juvenile court earlier, but I know it gets touchy when you're dealing with them. So I'm sure they'll keep us in line on that point. But pencil in your calendars. It seems like a long time, May 18th, but our committee has a meeting. We've got one day a month. So that's our next one. So I will pencil it in on mine for a follow-up of this, so we can talk about our successes and our next challenge down the line, how we're going to deal with summer. That's going to be an important part because they're talking about COVID and not being through with giving everyone the shots until somewhere around July. So we'll be in it and we still have to deal with it. So let's be ready. Thanks to everyone for coming out tonight and meeting with us. And we hope you good luck and good health.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Alder Smith, did you have something? Oh, okay. Mr. Vice Chair, you were about to make a motion?
I make a motion with adjourn.
Second.
I second.
Moved in second. All in favor? Say
Aye.
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 All opposed? Never anybody opposes adjournment. Gee. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
Have a good night. Thank you,
Good night,
Chair.
everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank
Appreciate
you, Mr. Vice Chair.
Okay, let me get out of here. Neighbor?